The Alaska Natives crossed the Bering Land Bridge around 13,000 years ago. They braved harsh conditions and learned to live off the land. They thrived as individuals and as a community for almost 10,000 years before first contact with whites. The introduction of white men came with many changes to Native cultures, social systems, education, and legal structure. With all of these changes, Alaskan Natives have the unique challenge of attempting to preserve their traditions while surviving in a commercialized world. Many Alaskan Native traditions remain largely misunderstood by today's Western cultures. They've operated in a much different world than those who were raised in cities, and they adapt every area of their lives to be functional within their regions. One of the first areas in all of North and South America to be inhabited is Kotzebue, Alaska. Because of the extensive history and current development, Kotzebue and the surrounding areas will be the main focus of my presentation. Kotzebue, Alaska was settled 10,000 years before it was discovered by the German Lieutenant Otto von Kotzebue in 1818. Kotzebue, Alaska has long served as a trading hub for Native people. The Noatak, Kobuk, and Selkirk rivers flow into Kotzebue Sound, which makes Kotzebue an ideal central location for meeting and distributing goods. This is exactly what originally led European explorers to Kotzebue. Europeans came primarily in search of furs and natural resources. Rather than partnering with the natives of the land, they enslaved them, abused them, and murdered entire villages. The European explorers also brought with them many diseases which the native Alaskans did not have immunities to. Nearly 2/3 of the population died from measles, influenza, diphtheria, pneumonia, polio, and tuberculosis. The death of so many natives left entire communities displaced. In the late 1800s, centers of economic activity were created, drawing in survivors of disease and famine. Many natives were now forced to give up their nomadic lifestyles and move into developed areas in order to survive. Europeans also flocked to these areas for subsistence hunting, fishing, gathering, and bartering. Just as Alaskan natives were settling and adjusting to a new way of life, Alaska was purchased by the United States without any input from the native people. The death, disease, and displacement of Alaskan natives left them with many questions and in need of finding a new way of life. Missionaries and traders came in with Western culture and further challenged their strained belief systems. For a people whose existence was tied intimately to the spiritual realm, the failure of medicine men to bring cures struck to the core of their cultural beliefs. Missionaries came in and offered answers, claiming their already shaken belief system was wrong from the start. They imposed their beliefs on the native people. The rampant diseases offered opportunity to remove native children and their sick families and to place them in mission schools, which stripped them of their language, culture, and identity. The boarding schools functioned to immerse American children in a white civilized society for extended periods of time to aid their progress from perceived savagism to civilization. The stripping of land, resources, culture, and identity continued for close to 100 years. The first introduction to Western commercialism in Kotzebue came with the European expansion into the area. European traders and miners came in and built roadways and introduced the reindeer herding as a form of subsistence and trade. Still, even with this introduction, Kotzebue maintained its roots as a hub of trade, with an economy based on a mutual exchange of tangible goods and services until 1958, when the city was developed. Kotzebue is just south of the Project Chariot site, where the post-World War II federal government intended to demonstrate the peaceful use of atomic power by blasting out a harbor. This is likely what led to the development of Kotzebue Air Force Station in 1952. With the military presence came a new economic system. Money was introduced and now a necessity. Outside food and housing was introduced. Modern appliances were introduced and began to be desired by native men and women in the area. Men began to trade in dog sleds for trucks and later snow machines. Women began to trade in traditional ways of preparing and cleaning for modern conveniences like dishwashers and blenders. These things were useful in increasing productivity, but could not be traded as was tradition. This created a need for a monetary economy. At the time, the main employer was the government, which required skilled and educated laborers. This further pushed the residents of Kotzebue into Western education and culture. In 1971, the ANCSA called for the development of native regional corporations. The NANA Regional Corporation was developed as a result of the ANCSA and covers Kotzebue and many of the surrounding areas. It was designed to provide economic opportunities and to protect native lands. Natives belonging to nanoregional corporation are also shareholders, entitled to monetary dividends, which further the monetary economic system. The establishment of the native regional corporations created a need for higher education for Native peoples. In order to meet this need, the University of Alaska established a rural education center in Kotzebue in 1971. The Education Center was the earliest foundation of today's Alaska Technical Center, which has had a major impact on the village. Over the next 10 years, Alaska natives were educated in the Western system, further stripped of their identity by what they were taught was right and proper in the school system, and were conditioned to fit into Western civilization. They would need this preparation to endure the next big economic boom, the development of Red Dog Mine. In 1982, the Red Dog Mine was established under the authority of the Nanoregional Corporation. It quickly became one of North America's most significant mineral deposits. From 1989 to 2009, the Red Dog Mine poured $291 million into the region's economy. This presented a huge change from the initial introduction of a monetary system in 1958. Such vast economic change in such a short time period came with numerous implications for the people in the region. With the introduction of commercialism in Kotzebue, subsistence living was no longer a sole source of provision. Native people were seen as disadvantaged and encouraged to depend on public welfare systems and to conform to Western American standards of living. They were told that their homes were insufficient and the government came in to build them homes. They were supplied by food from the government, lessening the need for subsistence. Schools were built to educate them in the right way of living. Some natives took the new way of living and embraced it. They set aside their ways and accepted the education and jobs they were told they should have. Some stayed in the area while others moved to bigger, more developed cities. Some attempted to merge both worlds, living and working in the culture imposed on them, while maintaining their own traditions. Others have resisted and struggled to maintain their cultural integrity in this highly commercialized society. Social systems of the Alaskan natives of Kotzebue have taken a huge blow in this new economic structure. Prior to the city's development, men, women, and children worked together to hunt and gather as a way of life. Many families shared the same home, ate together, and shared responsibilities. Social supports were abundant. There was a mentality that the village worked together as a whole. It was not uncommon for children to run loose and stay at the house of many relatives for indefinite periods of time. This type of social network provided a framework for how families and villages operated. With the introduction of commercialism, families were told this way was wrong. They were given houses to dwell separately and forced into the family styles believed to be right by white settlers. This type of division of families impacted everything from hunting practices to individual roles within the family. The family roles may very well be the largest area impacted by the social changes that came with commercialism. Prior to the integration of Western culture, men and women had very clear and different family roles. Men were hunters and gatherers, and women were responsible for the home and processing what the man brought to them. These roles not only spoke to one's place within the family, but the very roots of their identity. A man was a man because he brought in the harvest. A woman was a woman because she cared for the man. These values were further challenged by the 1980s supermom trend, when women were told they should be able to do it all, care for the house, care for the kids, and provide an income. Native women did not escape this trend. In a society where man is defined by his ability to provide, this was a huge hit to the already damaged Native male identity. Many Native men gave up. They lost a sense of cultural integrity. Culture is an essential weapon against the chaos of life and death. It is a means by which continuity from generation to generation can be ensured, and an endorsement of order and meaning is gathered. When natives were stripped from their cultural integrity, a sense of order and meaning was displaced. With all these changes, a need for a new legal system also arose. Prior to the introduction of Western cultural ways of living, North America Eskimos had legal systems that many viewed as savage and primitive. From the beginning of development, a child was raised in a way that followed these social norms. Babies were held close to their mother until around 5 years of age, at which time either a new baby arrived or for other reasons they were separated from this mother and introduced to a world of teasing. As they became enraged, further teasing occurred, which taught the child to control his or her anger. This lent to a mindset that if you wanted something, you could take it, but only if you were strong enough. It is not even uncommon for a man to lend his wife to another to save face because he knows he's strong enough to take her. There are bullies that came from this system that they know they're big enough and strong enough to take whatever they want. So even though the norm is to not steal and to not lie and to not cheat, and these are rules within the community, everyone understands that if someone is big enough and strong enough and powerful enough, they can take. This was the legal system of Kotzebue prior to the intervention by the government in the judicial system. A foundational belief that drove the legal system was the belief that no one could tell another what to do. This created resistance to any man being in charge of another man or accepting a boss over him. With no legitimate judicial response, men were constantly at each other's mercy. Men lived in constant fear of one another, knowing that if another man was bigger or more powerful, he could take whatever he wanted, even a man's life. With the introduction of a commercialized economy, these laws had to change. There was a need for a new social order and structure of authority that was heavily resisted by the people. With the fear of one man taking charge over another, no native man could be found to stand in a judicial system to enforce the laws. The inability of native men in the region to enforce laws led to the imposition of external legal systems. The increase in police presence had the opposite effect of what they intended. The increasing presence of state troopers and even village policemen reinforced the avoidance ethic and reduced the citizens' sense of local responsibility. The absence of fear of the reproach of other men removed a social legal order. The community's response was a removal of personal responsibility for one another and an increase in lawlessness, which continues today. The introduction of a commercialized society in Kotzebue, Alaska, has disrupted centuries of culture, tradition, and ways of life. The people of the region have been robbed of lands, stripped of their identities, and forced into ways of living that vary diversely from their traditional lifestyles. With so much change in the short time, Alaska natives in Kotzebue are in a position of forced change. Things can never go back to the way they were. It is up to the people of Kotzebue to determine how they will allow these changes to shape their future.